Well, welcome to today's event. This is our first of many what we are calling Worldly Wednesdays, and they are going to be happening a few Wednesdays of each month this semester virtually, where we're going to talk about different topics related to study abroad. And this particular session is going to focus on the Gilman Scholarship. And the Gilman Scholarship is a wonderful study abroad scholarship program that many students are eligible for. And if this is your first interaction with the Gilman, I encourage you to research. And if you've known about the Gilman for a while, hopefully we'll answer some of your questions that you may have about this award, how it works, and how you apply. I wanted to start today with the Gilman Scholarship website. So if you go to www.gilmanscholarship.org, that's where you can find a lot of the different information that I'm going to cover in today's presentation. If for some reason you need a refresher or you think to yourself, what was that deadline again? You most likely can find it here on their website. But here you can find information about the program itself, the application and how you go about submitting an application, which is all online. So it's very easy to do. I think we've all gotten pretty used to doing things via our computers, especially in today's day and age. And then what I find particularly helpful is this deadlines and timelines section of their website. But if you visit this deadlines and timeline overview, you'll find a lot of information about how the application process works. And then you will also find very important deadlines. So in this presentation and in the conversation today, we are largely going to talk about the October deadline, and specifically the October 6th deadline, which is coming up here. And you can read here that the October 2020 deadline is for students who are looking to study abroad sometime in the spring of 2021, summer of 2021, fall of 2021, and academic year 2021-22. So it covers a lot of time. So even if you are not thinking about studying abroad maybe this spring, or maybe even this summer, but maybe next fall, this scholarship is great for you and you'd want to think about applying for this particular deadline. We are not going to talk about it as much, but do know you can find information on their March deadline as well. And they have the information for March 2020. However, you can assume that the March 2021 deadline will look somewhat similar to the March 2020 deadline and the application cycles it encompasses. So now I am going to jump into the actual presentation. As Benny mentioned, please ask questions and no need to hold your questions until the very end. I have the chat feature up on my computer that if you ask questions as we go along, I'd be happy to answer them as we go through this presentation. Okay, so feel free to ask questions at any time. But I'm Ryan Meyer. I am with UC International Programs. I know some of my colleagues are joining today on our presentation as well. And we are essentially the study abroad office, but I also like to say we are the all things abroad office, meaning if you are going to study abroad with the University of Cincinnati, work abroad, co-op, intern abroad with the University of Cincinnati, participate on a service learning program with credit attached to it, you will likely work with our office in some way, shape, or form. And we are here to assist with not only things like the Gilman Scholarship, but scholarship in general. We are going to talk almost exclusively today about the Gilman Scholarship, but know that there are other nationally competitive awards that we help or assist students with. And also know that UC International Programs has the UC International Scholarship, which is money from our office that assists students in helping them pay for study abroad programs. So know that there are a lot of different resources out there if you are thinking about or planning a study abroad experience. Also, before I dive into the specifics of the Gilman Scholarship, I just wanted to note, because obviously it's hard to ignore the fact that we are in the middle of a global pandemic. So I just wanted to note that UC International Programs is available to you throughout the semester, almost primarily virtually, but we are here and we have walk-in hours. I will share those walk-in hours towards the end of this presentation. And also know at this point, the University of Cincinnati has put a pause on travel through the end of this calendar year. And it won't be until later in this semester that the university reassesses whether or not travel will be permitted for spring of 2021. So we are still waiting for decisions on that, but we are working with students who are planning their spring 2021 programs. I will say that there are still a lot of unknowns regarding spring travel. And my suggestion to you is if you have time in your schedule or within your academic program to plan a later study abroad, I would encourage that at this point. Because again, we still don't know exactly what spring will look like, and there's still a lot of unknowns. However, the scholarship that we're going to talk about today and the deadline in October also is good for programs that are going abroad in summer 2021, fall of 2021, and then academic year 2021 and 22. And I'm very hopeful that the world is going to look a little bit better once we get into those summer months and hopefully for fall. So I'm very hopeful about that. So know that it's good to be thinking about the scholarship, even if you're not necessarily planning to travel within the next, 3 or 4 months. So again, we are UC International Programs. We are a dedicated staff of advisors that are here to assist students with study abroad, internship abroad, co-op abroad, and any questions you may have along the way, and those different financial resources that are out there as well, like the Gilman Scholarship. So before we dive into the meat of the presentation, we've got a quick poll for you just so we can see where students are interested in going. So hopefully everyone's polling feature popped up in their WebEx. And let us know if you can't see the polling feature. And we'll give you guys a minute or two to answer that poll then. And Benny, do we have the results of that poll?
We have 1 more minute before I can share them.
Gotcha.
But it looks like folks can see it.
Awesome. Will it pop up in WebEx then?
I will, as soon as it's done, it should show up on the side panel. Folks should be able to see it, and I will let you know in approximately 45 seconds.
Awesome. As we wait for those poll results, obviously you are here today because you want to learn more about the Gilman Scholarship, which is a program of the U.S. Department of State with funding provided by the U.S. government, and it's administered by the Institute for International Education, and it's been around since 2001. And I've been working with students going on who've received the Gilman Scholarship for pretty much the last 10 years. Seeing if and when the poll results will come.
Yeah, so it just closed. Let me go ahead and.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So a lot of people interested in Europe, Asia as well. Really, we've got almost all continents covered. except North America and Canada, which I understand. Awesome. Thanks, Benny.
No problem.
So in talking about the Gilman Scholarship specifically, it's one of many vehicles to help students go abroad through scholarships. So even if you're a student that thinks I've got limited financial means, know that there are many different ways that you can engage scholarship out there for study abroad. And really the Gilman always has been, but it's become a very prestigious scholarship to receive. And it's not just a scholarship that will help you go abroad, but it's a program that you become part of once you receive the Gilman Scholarship. So as I mentioned, the Gilman Scholarship is sponsored by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, or ECA, and the US Department of State. And ECA leads, sorry about that, jumping ahead. ECA leads a wide range of academic and professional and cultural exchanges with the goal of increasing mutual understanding and respect between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. And the Gilman Scholarship is just one of many programs sponsored by ECA. So this is a really, really great scholarship program. And to give you the breakdown of who is participating in the Gilman Scholarship program, it's 40% first-gen college students. It's 65% racial or ethnic minority groups. We've got 33,000 U.S. undergraduates with high financial need going to 150 countries. And there are over 1,300 U.S. institutions represented. And each term, I'm happy to say that we've got, more than a handful of University of Cincinnati students receiving the Gilman Scholarship and participating in study abroad. So the Gilman Scholarship itself, in terms of monetary value, are scholarships up to $5,000. So not every student necessarily gets $5,000, and the amount you get is going to be based on your financial need and the program that you're going on. So they award over 3,000 scholarships, including another scholarship, which I'm going to talk about, which is the Gilman Mccain Scholarship. And recipients can use this money towards the cost of their program. So it actually goes to help you pay for study abroad and can be used for things like tuition and fees, room and board, books, local transportation, health insurance, and international airfare. Award amounts are going to vary. As I mentioned, they can be up to $5,000, and it depends on the selection process and the need that you have as indicated by the FAFSA. Students can apply the scholarship toward a fall, spring, summer, winter, or academic year program. The Gilman program is often asked by students, what are the chances of me receiving a scholarship? And it's generally 1 in 4 students are awarded a scholarship. So of the many nationally competitive awards out there, while this is still a very prestigious scholarship, we will often at the University of Cincinnati have multiple students that receive a scholarship or a Gilman Scholarship. So if you're selected for a Gilman Scholarship, you will receive credentials essentially to access Gilman resources, and it will kind of walk you through the Gilman Scholarship program once you've been awarded that money. In addition to the Gilman Scholarship as kind of the baseline of receiving $5,000, you can also choose to apply for a Critical Need Language Award, which is up to an additional $3,000 more if you plan to go abroad and study one of these languages on the screen. And I'm not going to read through them, but you can take a look if a language of interest for you is on that screen. But as I explained, kind of what the Critical Need Language Award is. So it's a supplemental award of up to $3,000 for a combined total of $8,000 if you are awarded the money. In addition to receiving additional funds for language study, students who win this award and complete their Gilman Scholarship requirements will be offered the opportunity to take the ACTFL Oral Proficiency Interview, or OPI. This test and the results will serve as both an evaluation measure of the award and as a credential of the award recipient. And credential is essentially, proof of your accomplishment and that you received this award and you got the credentials to speak this particular language. So essentially, you can apply for the Critical Need Language Award if you are eligible for the Gilman itself, and then you are planning to go abroad and study Chinese in China or Korean in Korea. So to be eligible for a Gilman Scholarship, the applicant must be first a citizen of the United States. So it does require you to be a U.S. citizen, an undergraduate student in good standing at an accredited institution of higher education in the U.S. Real quick, I've got a question in the chat. If granted a scholarship for the CNLA, is there any obligation to the State Department after returning? So essentially, if you get that credential, do you have to work with the State Department? And that is a very good question, because many scholarships will have that particular requirement that you return and actually fulfill some sort of service to the U.S. Department of State or another U.S. government agency. To my knowledge, and I've never seen that as a requirement, that you don't have to fulfill any obligation to the State Department. You just have that particular credential. Okay. So back to the real quick Gilman eligibility requirements. So you've got to be a citizen of the United States. You've got to be an undergraduate student in good standing at a higher education institution or the University of Cincinnati. You've got to be receiving a federal Pell Grant during the time of application, or provide proof that you will be receiving a Pell Grant during the term of your study abroad. In the process of applying to or accepted for a study abroad or internship program of at least a week, 2 weeks for community college students, or 3 weeks for four-year institutions. So you've got to be in the process of essentially or planning to apply for a credit-bearing study abroad program of at least 3 weeks or more as a University of Cincinnati student. Okay. You've got to be in a country or area with an overall travel advisory of a level 1 or 2. And like I said, a minimum of 3 weeks abroad. So really quick to recap these Gilman eligibility requirements. You have to be a U.S. citizen, an undergraduate student in good standing at the University of Cincinnati, be receiving or will be receiving a federal Pell Grant. You've got to be going on or planning to go on a credit-bearing program, meaning a credit-bearing study abroad program. Know that many students will be applying for this particular award before they've actually applied to study abroad. And that's okay, but you have to know which program you plan on or are going to apply to as you apply for the Gilman Award. So make sure you're having those discussions with your study abroad advisor, and I'll give you ways to get in touch with those study abroad advisors at the end of this presentation. And then you've got to be going to a country or an area with an overall travel advisory of 1 or 2. So in these strange times where there is a global pandemic, you will notice that many, and travel advisory means the U.S. Department of State's travel advisory. You will notice many countries around the world are at a level 3 or 4. So if you are looking on the U.S. Department of State's travel advisory list right now for a country of a 1 or 2, it will be pretty hard to find. However, you can still apply to, let's say you would like to go to the UK. Right now, you might find that it has a travel advisory of a level 3. You can still apply in these special circumstances to travel and study abroad in the UK, even though it might have a level 3 travel advisory. It just has to be down to a level 1 or 2 by the time that you do travel. If for whatever reason your country becomes a level 3 or 4 before the time of travel, you'll be asked to switch your program destination. Okay? So the Gilman Mccain Scholarship is a newer scholarship that falls under the umbrella of the Gilman Scholarship organization. And it's $5,000 for a child or dependent of active duty service members. It has the same requirements of the Gilman Scholarship, meaning you have to be a citizen, a U.S. citizen, an undergraduate student going on a credit-bearing program to a country with an overall travel advisory of a 1 or 2, and be going abroad if you're a University of Cincinnati student for a minimum of 21 days or 3 weeks. The additional requirements for the Gilman Mccain is that you're a recipient of any type of Title IV federal financial aid, and that you are a dependent child of an active duty military member, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Coast Guard. If you fit one of those if you fit all of those Gilman Mccain Scholarship requirements, there is only one application to complete for both either the Gilman Scholarship or the Gilman Mccain Scholarship. So it's only one application. If you are a dependent of an active duty military member and you're receiving federal Pell Grant funding, then you'll be eligible for both scholarships, essentially. If you receive the Gilman Mccain Scholarship, then you'll no longer be considered for the Gilman Scholarship. So it's one or the other, essentially. The award is also a flat $5,000 instead of up to $5,000, and there are only 100 of the Gilman Mccain Awards for the entire academic year. So the difference between the two awards is essentially it's one application, but the Gilman Mccain Scholarship has this one particular requirement. And the reason that you'd want to be, if you are a dependent of an active duty military member, that you'd want to check that off is you likely will be competing possibly amongst a smaller pool of applicants who meet those very specific requirements. So how to apply? The entire application process is conducted online and has 2 steps. The online application asks for study abroad internship program details, 2 essays, and an undergraduate transcript. So that's essentially step 1. To get your undergraduate transcript, you'll work with the registrar's office, and you can actually receive that undergraduate transcript electronically. When you ask for your undergraduate transcript from the University of Cincinnati online, it will ask you where you would like it sent. I always encourage students that you have that transcript sent directly to you. So don't have that sent to Gilman, don't have it sent to the University of Cincinnati or the Study Abroad office. Have that transcript sent to your email address if you're requesting that transcript. The second step in the application process is that it must be certified by both study abroad advisors and a financial aid advisor, essentially. And you'll have a drop-down menu of advisors at the University of Cincinnati that you can select. If you're taking notes, and you're not sure who your study abroad advisor is or who you should pick in the Gilman system, you can contact global@uc.edu and we'll make sure that you're connected with a study abroad advisor. And then the financial aid advisor that you should select in the Gilman system is David Jenkins. So again, real quick, just 2 steps on how to apply. There's an online application. And as you apply, you'll be asked about your study abroad program details. That's why you have to have something in mind before you apply. There are 2 essays, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. And then you have to submit your transcripts and select who your study abroad advisor is at the University of Cincinnati and your financial aid advisor. And then the second step to this is your advisor certification. So you've got to, again, We'll get an email once you've selected us as your advisor, as your study abroad advisor, and David Jenkins will get an email when you've selected him as your financial aid advisor. So essay number one this is the biggest part of your Gilman application, are the 2 essays that you will have to submit. I encourage you obviously to write those in a Word document first, and know that if you complete this in a Word document, you can always send these to someone in the study abroad office, and we'd be happy to meet with you via Teams and give you our feedback on your essays. The first essay, as I mentioned, is your statement of purpose. So it's all about you, and you can kind of think of this as a personal interview or a way for the people reading your essays to get to know you and your story. So in that essay, you should include who you are, why you want to do this, how this is going to benefit you in the future, and help you to meet your goals. The biggest thing as part of the Gilman Scholarship is they want to know about your background and any challenges you faced getting to this point in your college career, or even getting to college that you faced, and how it relates to your study abroad. So they want to hear who you are and those challenges that you face throughout life. This is an essay where you should be honest, and as honest as you are comfortable being. And you should also assume that anything in this essay one is completely separate than your demographic information. So if in the demographic information, they're asking you your major, the university that you go to, your racial ethnic background, assume that that demographic information is separate from your essays. And I would always recommend that you repeat them. So for example, I identify as LGBTQ. I would say that in my essays, and I would introduce myself again as I'm Ryan Meyer. I'm a University of Cincinnati student studying electronic media. And then I would kind of identify those other things about me that kind of complete this story and this picture of who I am and why I want to do this, and why I'd be a good candidate for the scholarship. I always tell students for the Gilman Scholarship in particular, you want to think about, why do you need this money more than all of those other students who need this money? And let the committee know that, why you need this money more, why you might be more deserving. So tell your story in this first essay. The second essay is all about your community impact, or you can think about this as some sort of give back. And the second essay essentially has 2 parts. So one, they want to know how you are going to be an effective citizen diplomat while you're abroad. So they want to know, if you are awarded this money from the Gilman organization, how are you going to be a positive representative of the U.S.? So how are you going to be a good ambassador? And then they also want to know, what are you going to give back once you return from your study abroad experience that helps promote the Gilman Scholarship as well as study abroad? So they want to know, like I said, 2 things in this essay. How are you going to be an effective student diplomat? And what are you going to give back? How are you going to promote study abroad once you've returned from your experience? On that second part, in terms of how will you give back by inspiring others to study abroad or take advantage of the Gilman Scholarship, I always tell students to think of something concrete. Think of something, you don't want to be wishy-washy in terms of saying, well, I might do this one thing or I might do this other thing, depending on how things work out. Think of one project or one example of how you're going to encourage others to give back upon your return. For example, if you are very involved in in student activities and leadership development, or you're very involved in your sorority, you might talk about how you're going to give back and talk about the Gilman Scholarship to your sorority. if you live in the Impact House or the Gen 1 house or part of McNair's scholars, you might talk about how you're going to give a presentation to other McNair's scholars and outline your experience with the Gilman organization and then also your experience abroad. So that's what they're looking back at, or that's what they're looking for in terms of projects that you do when you return. And as I mentioned, pick one thing and stick with it. What they don't like to see is students that kind of are wishy-washy between a bunch of different things or are shooting too big. They want to know that it's something that you can actually complete upon your return from abroad. And real quick, I just wanted to mention, while you should look at both of these scholarships as being or both of these essays as being very important, and you should put some time and energy into both essays, I always say that essay 1 probably carries a little bit more weight because it's where the readers are getting to know you, who you are, and your background. It's also a little bit longer. It's a maximum of 7,000 characters, which they estimate to be about a page and a half. Whereas the second essay, the community impact essay, is about 6,000 characters, which is a little bit shorter than that first one. So the way that you apply for the critical need language scholarship is by kind of saying that you are in the regular Gilman application, but then also that's going to require a third essay. So applicants who are studying a critical need language while abroad in a country in which the language is predominantly spoken have the option to be considered for this particular award or the additional $3,000. This award is competitive and offered to a limited number of students each year. And that's because you can potentially get a lot of money, up to $8,000. So to be considered for the Critical Need Language Award, it will require this third essay. Some key points to keep in mind are: be sure that the language you are studying while abroad is considered a critical need language by the U.S. Department of State. You can find that list on Gilman's website, as well as we looked at that list in the presentation earlier. Be sure you are studying the critical need language in a country where it is predominantly spoken. And then explain the level of intensity of your critical need language study while abroad, how studying this language will further your academic and career goals, and what your motivations are for learning or improving your language proficiency, and how you intend to prove your language skills while studying abroad. This essay has a maximum of 2,000 characters. So if you are studying a critical need language, know that this essay is much shorter than the other two. And again, here is that list of critical need languages as defined by the U.S. Department of State.
And I'll jump in really quickly, Ryan, just to add that on the website that Ryan showed earlier, there is actually a tab for essays. And so you can actually see the individual questions. So those were kind of an overview of the areas that they're going to ask about. But in terms of like actual specific questions and prompts, you can find those on the website. And sometimes those change. So definitely make sure that you check that out. But you can see the questions for each of those essays. There are also tools to review some sample essays and some sample things that people have talked about. And in particular, there are sample outreach projects listed as well if you are needing an idea.
And the way that they review these essays and applications is from a panel of study abroad advisors and people who work in international education and study abroad offices around the U.S. And we've actually had 2 people in our office serve on those, actually 3 people serve on the Gilman panel who have read all these essays and made decisions on who gets awarded. Now, that doesn't mean someone from UC is going to read your essay. That's not how it works. But we have experienced readers who know what the Gilman organization is looking for in these essays. So please connect with us, and we'd be happy to read those essays with you and give you feedback. We're not going to edit them for grammar or spelling or things like that, but we can say typically, yeah, you're on the right track, or hey, you might want to think about adding this little bit here. So selection criteria, and it's listed here, but they are looking at the impact of program and destination on a student's academic and career trajectory. So they are looking at, is the program a good fit with your career plans? And is the country a good fit with your career plans and your academic objectives? So think about that as you are looking at this scholarship, as well as when you're writing those essays. So for example, if you are an industrial designer very interested in the automotive industry, and you are interested in Germany, and you know that Germany has a strong industry of automobile design, you want to connect those dots and mention that in your essay, that this is all part of your bigger plan. They are looking for students who have community impact abroad and community impact upon your return. So they want to know that you're someone committed to giving back and promoting internationalization, study abroad, and the Gilman Scholarship, not only while you are abroad, but then after you return. They're looking at your academic preparedness. So academic performance, particularly in the applicant's major, is important, though there is no minimum GPA. So don't get too hung up on this particular selection criteria. They are going to look at your transcript, but I would say that they're typically looking more at who you are and those first two criteria that I mentioned. They're looking of diversity of background and experience. So this is a confusing one. They want to know that not only you are diverse, but the place that you are going to brings some diversity to the overall spectrum of study abroad. So while it is not a requirement that you go to what we deem a non-traditional study abroad destination, they, I would say they often will favor applicants who are going to non-traditional study abroad destinations. Non-traditional study abroad destinations tend to be places in Central and South America, Southeast Asia, as well as Africa. But again, it's not a requirement. I've certainly worked with many students who have gone to or received, for example, the Gilman Scholarship to go to Italy or Australia, which are typically considered more traditional destinations. But they are interested in diversity of you and the diversity of experience that you're embarking on. And then they're also, obviously, for the CNL award, looking for a commitment to proficiency in the language. So they want to know about your language study and your particular proficiency and commitment to learning that language. So deadlines and timelines. So for the official, really clear version of this information, make sure that you are checking out the Gilman website. I think they do a really nice job of outlining the deadlines and timeline on their website. But the October 2020 deadline is for programs that start anywhere from January 21st to December 21st of 2021. So that is spring semester, summer semester, fall, and academic year of next year. And keep in mind, those programs only have to be 3 weeks long. So if you are planning a 3-week-long summer program, you can apply for this particular deadline. Applications have already opened. They're open in mid-August, and they are due October 6th of 2020. And I believe that's 11:59, and in particular, you want to note that's 11:59 Pacific time. So October 6th is the big deadline to keep in your head. And then October 13th is the advisor certification. So when you are in that Gilman application, you will select your advisors. You're going to select your study abroad advisor from our office. It'll be in a drop-down menu. So you might be working with Angela Livengood and select her name, or me, and you'll select my name, or Crystal Craycraft, and you'll select her name. And then you'll also select David Jenkins as your financial aid advisor. When you've selected an advisor, you'll automatically get an email then from the system or from the, or we will automatically get an email from the Gilman system saying that you've selected us, and then we will go ahead and certify your Gilman application. Gilman Scholars Tips for Applicants. So create a compelling story that ties your past, present, and future to highlight the impact the scholarship will have on you. Again, especially Essay 1, they want to get to know who you are, why you want to do this, how is this going to benefit you in the future and help you to meet your goals, and why you need this money more, or why you are more deserving of this money than all of those other students saying that you need this that they need this money. So tell your story, and then start the application early. Be your truest self and have confidence that you are worthy. So be authentic. Tell your story. Let the readers get to know you. For your follow-on service project, think about your community and local schools. Think of how you heard about Gilman and how you could tell others about it. I always encourage students to think about their follow-on community service project. Think about things that you are already involved in and working with those organizations on that follow-on service project. So like I said, if you've lived in or are living in Impact House at the University of Cincinnati, talk about how you might go back to Impact House and give a presentation about the Gilman Scholarship in your study abroad. And then finally, if you don't apply, you'll never get it. And keep in mind that this October 6th deadline is one of 2 deadlines in this next academic year. But I always say try and apply early. And then if your time abroad coincides with a future term as well, you can often apply again. So alumni benefits, one of the biggest changes that I've seen in the Gilman Scholarship over the years is I think it's gone from a study abroad scholarship to a study abroad scholarship program. And what I mean by that is now when you are a Gilman scholar, you are a Gilman scholar for the rest of your life. And it's something that certainly will follow you. It's something that you put on your resume. It's a good career builder. It's a good thing to be talking about in interviews, whether you're applying for a job or or graduate school. It will give you non-competitive eligibility, or NCE, which is essentially like a credential. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but essentially if you would like to work for the US government, it gives you paperwork that says that you are a Gilman Scholarship and you're a really great applicant. So it's a really good thing to have. You're part of the Gilman Scholar Network. They've got an alumni ambassador program to connect you to different opportunities. There are seminars and career workshops, and then it just expands your career possibilities like Study Abroad does, and it gives you good skill development. It will take some time to apply for this scholarship, and it's not an easy thing to apply for, but it certainly is worth the journey. And sometimes even when students don't receive the scholarship, they say, wow, that was really, really great. I'm glad I did that because I learned a lot about myself in applying to competitive things like this. Stay connected with the Gilman organization for updates on the scholarship, deadlines, and things like that via their social media. And then there are also resources for international exchange or study abroad. I encourage you to get in touch with our office for those programs. And then you can also check out the Gilman contact information. If it's a specific question about the Gilman Scholarship, you can always get in touch with UC International Programs, the study abroad office at the University of Cincinnati. But in some cases, we may refer you directly to Gilman or the Gilman organization. So again, we are UC International Programs, the study abroad office at UC. You can connect with us and look up programs, study abroad programs at studyabroad.uc.edu. You can contact us if you've not been assigned or you're not sure who your study abroad advisor is yet. You can email us at global@uc.edu, or I always encourage students jump into our remote study abroad walk-in hours to connect with us. They are Monday through Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. via WebEx, and no appointment is necessary. And even though that this is via WebEx, do know that our remote study abroad walk-in hours are a different format that are, we can see you, you can see us, and we can have more of a conversation. So again, link to join us and future Worldly Wednesdays is also at studyabroad.uc.edu. Questions. So feel free to add any questions in the chat, or you can always email your questions to us at global@uc.edu, and we're also always happy to answer those questions during walk-in hours as well.
And to clarify, the link to the walk-in hours is also at studyabroad.uc.edu.
Thank you, Betty.
No problem.
Yep. And you can find those URLs and things like that here. Well, I will finish up by saying thank you guys so much for joining us today for our first Worldly Wednesday, our first longer format virtual thing that we're doing. So thank you so much for sticking with it. And we hope to hear from you in the future as you plan your study abroad. And we will sign off from there.